Let's see. How about you, young lady?
Like a big place with lots of sand.
Yeah, big. And how about you, young man?
Um, it's like a place with like no roads.
Yeah, that's true. Deserts don't have a lot of roads. And how about you, young lady?
It's a very hot place.
Yes, deserts are often very hot. And let's do one more. And how about you in the corner?
Henry, what else do you know about deserts?
They have cactuses.
Yes, deserts do have cactuses. Now, desertification is the idea that deserts expand, they grow, like you. You're growing. All of you are growing, and desertifications is basically just when deserts grow, and they grow into areas that aren't deserts, like grasslands or forests. And this is, unlike you growing, very bad, because as many of you have said, deserts are hot, they don't have roads, they have cactuses. They aren't the best place to live. And so when they expand into places, it doesn't exactly lead to good stuff. Now, does anyone, before I explain how they expand and why they do, does anyone have any guesses? It's okay if no one knows.
Any guesses?
How about
Because
you?
it's changing.
Yes. Yes, the environment is changing. And
Because water takes the sand to different places.
Oh, yeah,
a
that's
little bit, yeah.
Erosion.
Yeah, erosion, it does play a big role in it. So basically, the reason why it expands is because you take an area, say a forest, for example, and people chop down all the trees and get rid of all the plants. And the reason why it turns to deserts is because the soil doesn't have any roots keeping it together. Roots are basically, think of them as arms, hugging the soil, keeping it in place. But when people chop down all the trees and all the plants, the roots die off, they disappear, and there's nothing to keep the soil in place. So when it rains, it basically washes the soil away and leaves, rocks and sand, which is bad. And to demonstrate this, I have brought forward a demonstration, and I need some volunteers. So who wants to volunteer?
How many volunteers do you need?
I'm gonna say I need 2 volunteers.
2 volunteers. Let's do Hippie and Gabrielle. Okay, come on up. Alright.
So, here, do you mind if you hold this for a sec? So, first I'm gonna demonstrate what happens when it rains on a normal area where there's still plants, and then what happens when it rains when all the plants are gone. And here, I'm gonna lift this up, and can you two work together to hold this? And
If you guys need help, just let me know. It's kind of heavy.
What's the plan? They're pouring it in or not yet?
yeah, they're pouring it in, and here.
Here, Jacob, you can let go.
Okay, you got it?
Yeah.
Now, try to pour it in this area,
Alright, ready, guys?
and
Just
go.
put it at the top.
Now notice how the plants are soaking up the water. It's going in, the water's disappearing, and this is good. This is how it's supposed to work.
Alright. Good job, guys.
Good job. Now I need 2 more volunteers.
Alright, you guys like about to pop.
Let's
Cool.
do Hank and Marco.
Are we doing this one?
Yeah. Now we're demonstrating what happens when it rains when you have an area where all the plants have been removed, and what happens. And
Alright, you guys can go forward in.
now notice where the water is pouring. The dirt is because there's no plants to keep the dirt in, it's being removed, and now rocks are being exposed.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's pour it up. Good job, guys. Yay, good job.
The rocks are healthy. They're not healthy.
Good job, guys.
Mr. Bean.
Watch it. Alright, Ray, sit back on your balance.
Okay, let's see
This
where.
goes off the stands in the lap in 5, 4,
Nice job, volunteers.
2, 1, and 0.
And so before I continue, does anyone have any questions?
So why did the dirt move on the second time? What was missing that made that dirt move? Kaya?
Roots.
Very good.
Roots are missing, that's right.
And are there any other questions? How about you,
Samuel?
the one with the striped shirt?
Samuel, do you have a question or are you stretching?
Oh, okay, then how about you?
What happens when it rains in a desert?
Great
Well,
question.
Because there aren't that many plants in the deserts, you know, there's maybe a few cacti, the water, it creates giant floods. Have you ever seen a video of it raining in the desert? It creates these massive floods. Basically, it creates massive rivers for only a day or so, but this causes a lot of damage to the people living in deserts, and they've had to adapt. But the thing is that the deserts are expanding into areas and turning, you know, areas into deserts where the people there haven't adapted to it.
Or the animals.
Or the animals.
Yeah, because they will be in danger.
Yeah, and yeah, they become endangered. And so across the world, most people, or the most common job are farmers. Yeah, across the world there are hundreds of millions of farmers, and millions of them live in areas affected by deserts, or affected by desertification. Now, you see how when it rained, the rocks were exposed right here? Now, rocks aren't good for growing crops in them, and sand isn't good either. So whenever these areas get exposed to the rocks, people can't grow food, and so they have to leave their homes to search for better pastures, so to speak. And millions of people are having to flee their homes to find better farmland to grow food or to graze their animals. And this is a massive issue across the world with many ramifications.
Ladies, can you think of a change maker that had to leave his home, had to leave his farm because of climate change, because of drought? And he had to leave his farm. Cole?
Caesar Chavez.
Cesar Chavez had to leave his farm because of drought and because of climate change. His house was on his farm, right? So that's what he's talking about. That's still happening in the world.
Oh, I have one more thing.
Sure.
Now, it's a big downer that millions of people are having to flee, and it's a big issue, but there are many solutions that have worked across the world that are making it better in many places. And the main thing is planting trees, because the main cause of desertification is when people cut down trees and plants, and then the area turns into a desert. So across the world, people are creating walls of trees to stop the desert from growing. And it's expensive, but it's been extremely successful. And so that is probably the most efficient way to stop desertification, is to plant trees, especially trees that are native to the area. Plant trees, plant other plants, flowers, grass. All of these plants help keep the soil together and stop the spread of the desert. They act as like a wall. And additionally, keeping the ecosystems, the environments that are still not cut down, like say for example the forest you have back in the playground, keeping those environments healthy is also a great way to stop the spread of the desert. That means picking up trash, stopping people from dumping chemicals into them. So by planting more trees and more plants, keeping the trees and plants that are already around more healthy, our generation and your generation can stop desertification and save the lives of millions of people. Thank you.
Yay.